Teachers share 10 deeply disturbing, creepy things students have ever done at school. Number 1. I used to teach a PE class to 3 to 5-year-olds. I had this one kid who used to come with his friend from kinder. His friend's mother apologized to me numerous times and said she never would have offered to bring him if she knew what he was like. More than once, I had to evacuate the rest of the kids from the gym because this 3-year-old would be running around the gym, screaming what the hell at the top of his lungs while trying to punch, kick, or headbutt other kids. You never knew what would set him off. If you asked him to kick a ball, he was equally likely to kick another student or the ball. One time, he went so violent that I couldn't get him away from the other kids and ended up wrapping him in the firm cuddle technique, which they definitely don't teach teachers about anymore. I basically dropped him to his knees with me on my knees behind him, arms wrapped around his arms and his chest. The only part he could move was his head, and he kept trying to smash the back of his head into my face. But the worst part was the laughter. He normally had a vague, empty look on his face, but when he was trying to hurt someone, he would scream with laughter, wearing the biggest shit-eating grin. I only had him for 10 sessions once a week, but holy hell, I will never forget that kid. Number 2. One of my students, high school, came in one day and handed me a pop vinyl figure from one of her favorite bands. She said I could have it, and I, not used to random gifts, asked her why she was giving it to me. She said something along the lines of she didn't need it anymore. I thanked her and told her to have a good day. The following day, she killed herself. It immediately became clear why she didn't need the figurine anymore. That still bothers me. Edit. Thank you for the gold and platinum. Unnecessary, but appreciated. Also, thanks to everyone for the kind words. In retrospect, I knew this act was a sign that she was contemplating or preparing for suicide, but it didn't occur to me at that moment, and that haunts me. I hope she found peace. Number 3. Was teaching 7th grade in what we call in Germany gymnasium, something like high school, and it was the second week of the year. I noticed some kind of stress in him, and then at one point he erupted, threw his pencil case against the blackboard, yelled, "Everything is shit, everything!" Stood up, climbed on the desk, pulled out his penis, and peed while crying. The whole class, including me, was just shocked. I would have liked to prevent this situation, but it just escalated so quickly, and when it was happening, it was so surreal I was paralyzed. After what felt like 100 years, I just grabbed him, threw him over my shoulder, and walked out of the classroom. Held him by his hand while shouting into the classroom. They should stay in the classroom while I'm away, and only leave it for the next class. I went to call his parents. He got picked up and never came back to this school. I don't know what happened to him. Number 4. I taught 3rd graders for a year, so the kids were around 9 years old. It was a couple of days before the summer holidays, and I asked the kids what they were going to do during summer. I got to this one girl and asked her what she was going to do, and she happily announced she was going to Germany with her sister and parents. I asked her what she was going to do in Germany, and she said she was going to ask people if they have €1. I was like, what? And she proceeded to sit down on the floor with a sad look on her face, stuck her hand out to me and said, "See? Like this. Please, miss, do you have just €1? I'm hungry." She didn't really see anything wrong with this. I'm pretty sure she didn't really understand what she was doing. I was quite alarmed by this, so I informed the other school staff. It turned out that even though they weren't actually poor, her parents were regularly taking their 2 daughters to Germany over summer, where they would make them beg for money in the streets. I heard the girl and her sister got pulled out of school shortly after that, but I don't know what happened after, since I don't work there anymore. Number 5. Back when I was a teacher, one of my students randomly started punching another kid, his friend, in the middle of class. No provocation whatsoever. The puncher was into bodybuilding and pretty in shape, and he had never been violent before in school, so this was both surprising and hard to break up considering his size. He broke his friend's nose and was smiling after. Had no idea what he did was weird or upsetting. Number 6. Recently had one of my students tell a pregnant teacher that he wanted to punch her in the stomach. Another student said, "You can't do that, she's pregnant." The first student then said, "That's the point. These are 5th graders. This is also in a school that rarely has behavior problems, so this was quite a shock." Number 7. I teach 4-year-olds part-time, which means I usually do art and recreation in the afternoons. There's this girl in my class, let's call her Mary, who is a tiny terror that frequently runs around making other kids cry. Her moves are very calculated. A hair pull, kicking a toy over, snatching art. She waits until the other child is crying before she relents. She never wants the toy, just the reaction. On the other hand, this boy Jim is her polar opposite and often the voice of reason in my class. He's a gentle giant, the biggest kid in preschool. He shares happily, is kind during playtime, and is probably the most thoughtful human I've ever met. Well, one day during outside time, Mary kept targeting Jim. He was pretty good-natured the whole time. She would snatch a shovel from him and he would respond kindly by saying, "It's okay, you can have it. Toys are for sharing." Stuff like that. Sidebar. Remember those giant red and yellow cars that kids sit in and pedal with their feet? The yard has 5 for the kids to share. Mary was leaning against a wall and Jim pushing one of those cars. The kids like running around with them, so that was normal. Jim was probably a good 30 feet away from her when he suddenly started accelerating. He was aimed like a homing missile, pointing straight at poor clueless Mary. Genuinely believed he would turn away at the last minute or stop. I was wrong. He slammed the car right into Mary, effectively crunching her against the wall. I'll never forget how long it took for her to inhale. I was shaking. I thought he cracked her ribs. Her entire back was bruised, but thankfully no further damage. I was too shocked to be angry. After passing Mary to my co-teacher, I turned to Jim, who was sulking in the corner, and asked, "Why did you do that?" He just shrugged and very calmly said, "I was just trying to take care of our problem." 100% scared of this kid now. Number 8. I was a preschool teacher at the time. I was doing group time, singing songs, reading a book, and all the kids were sitting on the floor. One left to blow her nose. She came back, walked through the crowd of kids to get back to her spot, grabbed a quiet girl's hair, and kept walking. My assistant thought it was a mistake, but the girl kept walking. She even bent at the knees and yanked while the poor long-haired girl screamed. That girl had no remorse and would be so unpredictable. She would look in your eyes, but right through them. It was a stressful year. Number 9. At the first school that I taught at, I had a girl come up to me one day and say Robert has a knife. I pulled Robert into the hallway to talk with him about it. He said that he didn't have a knife, but did have a box cutter. I asked him why he had it, and he said, "Because I'm tired of Chris." Chris was an annoying suck-up, but wasn't really bad or mean to other kids. I asked Robert what he was planning on doing to Chris. He said, "I'm going to get him in the bathroom." I usually took the class to the restroom after lunch, but I didn't that day because they were being rowdy in the hallway. I took Robert to the office, and after hearing the story, the principal chewed him out. She then called Robert's mom, and she chewed him out on the phone. Here's the kicker. Robert knew that he was in serious trouble. He knew that what he was planning was wrong. He just didn't care. Not in a false bravado macho type of way. He literally didn't care. I hate to predict a kid's future criminal endeavors, but that kid scares me. By the way, Robert was 8 years old at the time. Number 10. I taught college. I taught mostly seniors and grad students. I had to essentially sit with a disturbed student in my office and keep him talking as campus police searched his office and workstation. The kid made threats against other students, and the students waited to tell me until it got really bad. When I intervened, he started threatening me, like on my personal cell phone, personal email, stuff like that. My husband told me to tell campus police, which I did, but everyone told me there was nothing they could do. The chair of my department couldn't even kick him out of my class because he was enrolled through a different department. His home department was slow to do anything. I called a meeting with him to ostensibly talk things out, but I had told my TA to search his stuff. My TA immediately called campus police, who went with him to search those areas. They found some stuff in his office, enough to kick him out of school, but nothing that rose to criminality. Well, that is, until he brandished the gun that was in his backpack. This happened as he stepped out of my office, and my TA and campus police stood there. I watched a campus cop literally tackle him off his feet. Edit. Whoa, this blew up. I've gotten a lot of questions about the details, and I'm reticent on giving much more. But trust me when I say I had the support of my department and staff. It's just that there wasn't much we could do. Response. Why not call the real cops? It depends on how your university police force is set up. At ours, city police don't have jurisdiction over the campus. We have a bona fide police force, graduated from the academy and all, who operate to enforce the law as well as university rules, supported by an aux force. If as a student you interacted with campus police, that's probably who you talk to. However, when it comes to serious criminal acts, they usually call in the city police because it's a small department. The issue is that if they called city police every time someone sent threatening messages, the cops would never leave. It's hard to tell in the moment what's just someone venting in a very unhealthy way and when it's a serious threat. I've had a student corner me in my office, crying and screaming, which was much more disturbing at the time, but it turned out to be harmless. This guy didn't raise his voice once. He was angry, but mostly seemed befuddled by the whole thing. Why was I even involving myself in a dispute among students kind of attitude? The threats were taken out of context, and he apologized if they scared me. In the moment, it felt more like I was dealing with an arrogant prick who was going to sick his parents on me than someone truly disturbed. It wasn't until the very end that I realized the danger I had placed myself in. Response: what they found. I really don't want to go into the details, but it was related to breaking the rules of appropriate use of a campus workstation. To those saying you can't search without cause, actually, no. It's university property they allow you to use. Much like your high school locker or work desk, they can search it at any time.